Hello, hello.
Hello.
Yo, dude. How you doing?
How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
Nice. Well, today, so, I mean, I guess I always start this off this way, but, might as well do it again. Go ahead and introduce yourself by just letting me know exactly, like, race, league, and you don't have to be too specific here, but say maybe like a generalized way you try to play the game overall.
I'm a Zerg. I'm Diamond 2, and I usually try to go for like long economic games. Um, I
Oh,
like drones.
I already really like you. Hell yeah. My kind of man right there. All right, so is there any race that's like giving you trouble right now more than others, or how you feeling in your matchups?
um, I'm doing pretty poorly at Terran and Protoss. I think I would probably want to start with Terran today, if that's all right.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Totally fine. Uh, um, okay, so there's a couple ways we can do it. Uh, the basically what we can do is I can just kind of pop into your replays if you want to. So I would recommend this if you have something recent. If you don't have anything super recent that you feel like is indicative of like your average play that you're trying to accomplish, um, then probably not do this method. But if you do have replays that are recent that just seem like they're well-rounded, like again, it just represents how you average on average play the game. We could do that. I could just kind of break down your replays and like give you more ideas on how to like improve. But if you don't really have anything on hand that's current or relevant for how you like, if you just don't really have a plan essentially, which is totally fine if that's the case, I can just kind of help you make a plan.
Okay. I have some replays we can start with.
Sure. Okay. So, last thing I guess before we jump into it is, um, you can do one of two things to invite me to a party just so we can get like a party going. One is you can join my vibrator group chat if you know how to join. Like some people just have no idea how to join group chats, which is fine. If you don't know how to do it, an easy way to do it as well is you can just click your profile on top right. Like just left click it. It'll open up your profile. On the middle left, you'll see a button that says ladders. You can just left click once there. Now it'll open up the same exact page, but now it has like a different list. So it'll be Grandmaster behind that, right where ladders was, and then if you go there, I will be on this list at rank 86.
Got you.
Perfect. Nice. Nice, dude. But yeah, I would say for me too, ZvT is definitely a matchup that I would feel is like ZVP is, I don't know. I think ZVP is alright, but I think ZvT is definitely the matchup that feels hardest for Zerg right now, from my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Would it be better to start off with one where I lose or win, or does it matter?
Honestly, I would just say if you can pick the best replay you want to show me, it would be the best, whatever replay you have that best shows your average game, like you, from your perspective. It doesn't
All right,
matter
well,
if you win or lose,
I'll just pick.
because I'll be able to see if you're making mistakes and stuff, and like how your play goes. All right, then before you start, just right-click my name here in the lobby and just make me perfect. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. All right. So, the big thing about Terran that makes them really hard to deal with, and just in general, is the range of openers that they have now. It's a lot. It's essentially like I don't know, 15 of them or something like that. It's like a ton of them. So one of the best things I would recommend to do, we'll get to it when we get to it, but I would definitely recommend probably getting Overlord speed mixed into your build for your average game, just because it's. Or, by the way, if I'm ever talking and you want to say something, you can by all means just like interrupt me. It's totally fine. I don't mind.
Okay, no problem.
But yeah, like Overlord speed just helps so much in this matchup nowadays. It's very, 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 very nice. Okay, so we have a 16 hatch from you, which is fine. I would say if you want to tweak it very slightly, this is a very minor thing, but I personally like 17 hatch better. Only for ZvT. I like 16 better against Zerg and Protoss. And the reason for that is 17 is just like slightly more economical, and your hatchery goes down at super similar times. You just get better usage of your larva with the 17 hatch. And I mean, if you still go 16 hatch though, just know that it does not matter. Like it's like really that much. It's very, very minor. So it's really up to you. So that's, I mean, you can take or leave that if you want.
Cool. I've just been doing 16 in every matchup. But
yeah, if that makes you feel good, just keep doing it. That's fine.
Well, I played Terran a little bit differently than the other two anyway, I think. So
yeah.
I don't think it would be that big of a deal to change.
I really like your economy so far. That's super good. Okay, so you're like basically, I can already tell just by how you rallied the drone and the fact that you built a 20th drone and the way you rallied your gas, you're already kind of like doing the speedlings expand style that we've either like you got it from me or you got it from someone else. It doesn't matter, but this is already good. Like this is already like. Opener wise, you're already doing great. So we'll see where we go from here. Now, I'm gonna actually let you go a little bit further with Overlord for a second. Okay, so I would say I just saw in my opinion, your first mistake, and what that is so build wise, you're great. It's totally fine. But scout wise, make sure, no matter what, every single time you always definitely make an effort to get to that natural and you spot the command center. Like you need to physically see it. Because if you don't actually spot it, there's so many possibilities of things that could be happening to you. Even if you see a Rax in a depot here, that looks normal so far. But seeing or not seeing the command center is a big deal. Because, for instance, if you make only 4 lings and you go right back into droning, and let's say there was no command center, and there's like 2 more barracks somewhere else, and he's going for like a triple barracks Reaper all in. That could happen, and things like that could happen if you don't know he's expanding. Also, another thing about it is I mean, I don't know how far in your Overlord's going to go in a second here. I imagine it's probably going to turn around as soon as it gets shot by a Marine, or maybe even just before the Marine pops out. But if you don't see a command center, and let's say it was not multi-racks, there's a good chance it could be like double gas or something like that, or it could be a proxy base or. Like, there's all this, like, weird stuff that could be happening if you just don't confirm there's a command center. So it's definitely super important to make sure you confirm that. And you always can. That should, like, I would actually say what you've seen right now with double depot barracks is less important than seeing the command center. Like, that thing is the most important thing to see because it confirms there is no aggression. Like, if it's just harass instead. There's no, like, massive all-in coming or some awkward build.
Is it important that I see the command center as early as possible?
I would say yes.
In this case, yeah. So that's a priority over, like, for example, could I go to where it went now and then down to check the command center, or
I would recommend
not do that?
Like on a map like this, where the natural and the main are like in it's basically like you know what let me say this in a way that's not confusing. Think about a map like this, where it's very standard, where you can scout the ramp of the natural and also the natural command center. Like you can scout like the top of the ramp and also the command center itself at the natural, like super easy with like one movement. But if you think about a map like, let's say like Golden Wall, that's super non-standard. If you go to the, like you have to like go deeper into Terran's base, like really deep to see the natural, because it's like, it's not in a diagonal. It's more in like a straight line where you have to choose to go north or south, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So on standard maps, you should always scout like the base of the ramp. And there are actually, in the current ladder pool for all the seasons like right now, today, there are no non-standard maps. There's just aggressive or non-aggressive maps where some of them are slightly longer than others, but they're all standard. There's no really awkward oddballs like a Golden Wall. So yeah, I would definitely say scout the natural, like basically just, you know where the unbuildable rocks are? Just like right around there. Like have your Overlord scout right about there, and it will see.
So you can kind of see the top of the ramp
exactly,
and the natural
like
at the same time.
The edge of the vision will see both the ramp and the command center. And then once you see the command center, and if you see a Reaper cross the Overlord as well, because you will still see it. Once you see the Reaper cross, and you go, oh, he didn't make a Marine. You could dive a little bit deeper into his base, then go commit to the ramp, because now you have confirmed there is a command center there, and you could see if it's going to be a factory or whatever, you know what I mean? That'd be fine. But here's the big thing too. If you confirm that it's command center, you confirm that you can take your third base, and that you can also make your larva, like you can make a couple lings like you just did, but you can make a lot of drones, and it does not matter if it is multi-barracks, it doesn't matter if it's multi-factory, it does not matter what it is, it can't attack you for like the next 3 minutes if you confirm there's a command center there. But if you don't confirm that, it can attack you in about 90 seconds. So like that's the part where you're gonna die if you don't confirm it. That's where it's like, oh shit, I'm in the droning phase and I'm just gonna die now.
Yeah.
Alright, good shit. Yeah, other than your scout, like, perfect play so far. Like, your larva is not bad. You're keeping it up even while fighting the Reaper. That was a little. Yo, thank you for the sub. Away the gun. Much love, dude. That was a little bit of an overcommitment there with your Zerglings. It's I would say like for the first part of the Reaper, that was great. Like what you want to do. This is the best way to fight a Reaper. Let him actually get all the way to your mineral line. Like, let him actually get to the point to where he can shoot your drones like once, essentially. So you actually pull your lings back to the mineral line, and then you chase him to the edge of creep, and you push him off of creep, and then as soon as he gets off creep, you just turn around right back to the mineral line, and you make him basically waste a bunch of time running around. The better Terrans are, the more they'll be able to very quickly counter micro your micro, and it becomes harder. Then you have to like actually do shit where you pull like one ling at a time away from the Reaper as he tries to like focus fire it. This usually starts happening around like literally like 5,000 MMR, I would say, or like 5,400 or something, like upper mid, like above 5k to like 5 to 5.4, and then anything above that, it almost always happens.
What should be the default place I put my lings for the Reaper? Is it correct to have them at the natural?
I would say
like at the Reaper cliff. Or
I would say kind of where your drone is. That's crossing the natural ramp right now, going down to the natural.
Okay.
Right about there, like just at the top of the ramp. And the reason why is because you don't know if he's going to go to the main or not. Because if he does go to the main and you're way at like the front of the natural, you're going to definitely either lose a drone or you're going to have to like build a spore crawler to save it or something like that. Like your drone's going to get its ass kicked.
Makes sense.
So, but if you leave it at the top of the ramp, you can easily push the Reaper away at the natural, or you can just quickly bounce back to the main and then push it away there.
Would that be the same for pretty much every map?
Yeah, 100%. It's because it's like you want to have it in a centralized distance between your bases, but you want it to be a little bit closer to your natural because the natural is not only it's always going to be like a smaller location. Where if you think about it like this, if a Reaper runs up the ramp at your natural, and it goes into your mineral line, essentially, it's going to be going from the ramp, the edge of your creep vision at your ramp, really quickly into your mineral line. It's super close. Like if you were to make a green box from your drone to the edge of your creep at your natural, it's already touching the ramp, essentially. So the Reaper will get there super quick, which is why you want to have it maybe a tiny bit closer to your natural. What I'm talking about is like where the lings are. But now click a drone and make a green box from your drone to where the Reaper can jump up in your main. It's a much bigger box. It's fucking huge. So you have a lot more time to react to the main, which is why you would leave it a little bit further away from your main. And then ideally, like your third Overlord, like how you kind of have it, he'll kind of spot for like where the Reaper goes and stuff like that, so you have a good idea where it's going to happen. And yeah, in general, you should be okay. You might have to micro drone by making like a spore here and there, but otherwise, putting your lings there will make you just fine.
Okay.
All right. Now, for queen usage, we'll talk about what we're doing here in a second. Okay, dude, you're fucking on point. I don't know. You might have watched the last lesson I did with someone like this, but yeah, everything's looking great. Or a lot of things are looking really good here. Like the fact that you didn't put your creep tumor as well on the edge of creep, I like that a lot, because it's so much harder to defend that if you don't have speedlings. So you can't have them yet because the upgrade's not that fast. So that's good. At this point now, all it really comes down to is getting your third queen started, and like after you spend your larva, and then getting gas back on your main, saturated again, if you want to go for Overlord speed. And if you don't go for Overlord speed, I wouldn't say you have to do that, but I definitely think it's better nowadays in ZvT, just because Terran, again, like I said, has so many options.
Okay.
How do you feel about Overlord speed? What do you think about it? Like in terms of, do you want to actually do it or no?
My scouting is pretty bad in general, so I'm not sure if it'll actually help me very much or not.
Okay.
So it'll be something I'll have to play around with, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, we could definitely talk a lot about it and stuff like that, and what you should see. So you're gonna skip it, which is fine. I'm not saying you have to get it, but I'd recommend it. Otherwise, your build's great. I love that. I would say this is probably one of the only things I would say that you kind of could do better, other than Overlord speed, if you wanted to go for that. Your queen at the natural that is just spawning should be the one injecting your natural, which is totally fine. But the queen that's already there, I would say I would have loved it if when it had 25 energy, which is 16 energy ago, if you would have thrown down a second tumor, like at the base of the ramp just before the edge of creep, and then waited until those tumors were like, we're talking like 60% of the way done. Like so you're not just running away from them right away, but you're waiting until they're almost done, and then you run away, and where you run is to your third base. And the reason why is because when this queen has 50 energy, your third base will be practically finishing. And if your queen is not at your third base to inject it right away when it's done, you're missing a lot of time there. And we'll see, like, I don't know how long it'll take, but we'll see what happens until it gets there. But that's a big priority. You definitely...
Should I be starting a new queen from the natural now as well?
Only when your larva is fully spent. And if you went for Overlord speed, you wouldn't be able to afford it super fast because you'd be mining more gas and you have an extra expense. But you do want to start it as soon as your larva is all spent. You do want to do it then. But if you skip Overlord speed, you could totally afford it.
So if I went for Overlord speed, then all three of my queens would be injecting at that point. I'd have no creep queen for a little bit.
So this is how regardless of if you inject, or sorry, regardless of if you do or don't go for Overlord speed, this is how it should go. Queens 1 and 2 that spawn together, you should do both. Your main queen can inject, and your natural queen can make a tumor. Okay. And then you make another queen immediately after, as soon as you can, at your natural. So you'll have up to 3 queens at that point, like eventually. So you don't start both queens in the main and natural together. You just start a queen at the natural, and that's it. Then, so queen in the main, basically, when that queen spawns, it literally just sits there the entire time, inject, inject, inject. It never does anything but injecting. First queen at the natural throws down 2 tumors and walks to the third. Second queen at the, and then it becomes an injector for the third, and it just stays there forever. Second queen at the natural injects forever. So the only tricky part is the first queen at the natural is double tumor and then inject third. That's what I would personally recommend.
Okay, and you like putting 2 tumors out front rather than connecting to the main?
You can connect the main if you want to, but the reason why I like doing 2 tumors out front is because it's really easy. Like, it takes 1 tumor to fill in the gap of creep from your natural to your main. Just 1 tumor. And you can do that later on, and you'd still be fine. Because again, if you confirm that you're playing against like a early command center play, you're not going to be getting attacked by anything realistically, anyways, until like 4:35 minutes. It's not going to happen like at 3 minutes. You're getting attacked all of a sudden, like right now. Like you're still getting harassed by just a Reaper. So if you actually put 2 tumors down at the natural, what you can do is you can spread 1 to the left and you can spread 1 to the right. And what this allows you to do is not only allows you to have your creep connected to where your third and fourth would be, but it also gives you expedited creep spread in those areas. So by the time you do get attacked by whatever Terran's going to do to you, ideally if you're spreading well, you'll have like at least a full screen length of creep in front of your expansions, which are going to be the places that get attacked the most likely. Like, he's probably not going to always just go for the main. I mean, he might drop the main, that's fine. But what I would recommend for the creep tumor in the main would be maybe the 4th queen. So the first queen that you make that's dedicated just to creep spreading, that, like, as soon as that queen spawns out of the natural, that queen could put a tumor in your on the top of the ramp in your natural that spreads all the way through your main, so you can spot drops and stuff later.
Okay. I also have link speed almost finishing. I've heard you say a good time to build links for Hellions would be like right before it finishes.
You made links
so like it finishes at the same time. I also see some people saturating the natural mineral line first.
That's so.
Is there a difference in those?
The difference is if you know what build it is. Here's what it is. If you see someone going for reactored Hellions right away, it is risky to make drones, all drones, on the middle line first, in my opinion, because here's why. If your opponent, and here's the biggest thing too, if your opponent is the kind of guy that goes for gas before barracks, and he goes factory before command center, if you do not make lings, and you don't scout, if you don't have the full read of this, and you don't make lings, but like as ling speed's almost done, you are gonna have Hellions in your base, clear, like way before your ling speed's done, like we're talking by like 20 seconds, and if you only have 4 lings just sitting there and like 2 queens at the natural, he could very realistically run past your queens with his couple Hellions and his Reaper, and he could kill, on the low end, probably like 3 drones, on the high end, maybe like 7 drones, if he just happens to have really good fucking focus fire, and it would suck really bad. If you play against someone who plays standard, where they go like gas after barracks, and they make a command center, and first before the factory, which is what that means. And like if they make a gas and a barracks like together for the Reaper essentially, and they also, if they make a Reaper, that also does slow down it a little bit if they pair it like that. But basically, if they have a command center, essentially, that's the big one, then the Hellions will be showing up. If he wants to YOLO you, Hellions will be showing up at your base just like maybe like 5 seconds before ling speed finishes. Like if he wants to YOLO into your base, which again some Terrans do. Like it's just it does happen for the first couple Hellions, and if you wanted to bring the Reaper. And if you don't have lings started by then and you wait till you're fully saturated, there's a higher chance you're going to lose drones. But then if you wait, and if you were to go for full saturation of the mineral line, that would be for more passive Terrans who just don't YOLO into mineral line, or Terrans who don't open up with an early gas. So if a Terran is like standard essentially, and they're not super aggro, like they're not just running into your base right away, because again you do have Overlord spread, so you can always try to position your queens correctly to like zone out Hellions. But if the Terran's not YOLO, you could totally get away with saturating your natural mineral line. But you just have to realize that if you don't confirm the command center is there, you don't know if he has an early gas or not. It's harder to read that. And, I mean, you can kind of tell by the factory timing, because, I mean, at least he's got that, so you know it's not YOLO Hellions. So this game would have been a game you could have saturated the natural. You just have to be, the big thing is you have to be super careful, because Terrans can build their gas before their barracks, which means they can have really fast Hellions. So if you want to have a safe build, I would say have, like, as ling speed finishes, try to have like 10, 12, 14 lings in your base. And then, okay. You would have no problem crushing YOLO players. Because I don't know how often you play against that, but I do play against Terrans who play like that quite often myself. And then I would say, or go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I'm supply blocked here. I kind of wanted to ask, I mean, I know ideally the idea is not to get supply blocked, but if I do, I'm not really sure what I'm doing with my resources. Like, should I be taking...
This is what you should do. If you supply block, if you ever find yourself supply, like, and just know too, your natural or your third base is about to finish, which is going to help you out here, which gives you 6 supply. But if you ever do supply block, this in my opinion should be your goal. Take a good look at your hatcheries for a second when you're supply blocked and go, okay, how much larva do I have? And try your best to make 1 overlord per hatchery that has 2 larvae on it. And either that or like definitely make an overlord, obviously. Maybe make like 2 overlords. But just don't let your larva cap. That's the biggest thing. And if you think you're about to larva cap and you're like, well, I already have, let's say, like 3 overlords in production on like 1 on each base, and I'm still like, my larva is going to start fucking getting crazy here. You could literally do something like you could go to your natural and build double gas, and then build a couple more drones or something, or whatever you wanted to make, and then cancel those gases and then go back to mining minerals. You want to do your best to not larva cap, because supply blocking...
So basically just making overlords so that I don't larva cap until I'm not. But I want to pool the rest of it so I can make drones or whatever after I'm not.
Because obviously, if supply blocking it's shitty, like you don't want to do that. But the lesser of the two evils here is if you just spend your larva and don't larva cap, compared to just, you know, only making like 2 overlords and just waiting on it, and now suddenly your larva capped on like 2 of your bases, and you're like, well, I'm just waiting, because then you're not generating larva anyways. When larva has a bit of a catch-up mechanic compared to other races, where if you are supply blocked and as long as you don't larva cap, suddenly you're gonna make you know, like 8 drones right after the Overlord spawns or something like that, rather than only being able to make 3, 1 per base. Because, you know, like, if your larva caps for all of, what, like 1 second, that's okay. Like, if you do that and then just, like, immediately your Overlord finishes then, because you've made an extra Overlord per base, so you didn't have 3 larvae sitting there for all of, like, 15 seconds or 14 seconds. Like, you don't want that to happen. That's the biggest thing, because then that is literally getting units deleted, essentially, because you just never will be able to make them again, because you don't have the resource to make them anymore.
Yeah, so after I'm not larva capped with the rest of my resources, is it a good idea to make tech I don't have or things like that? Or
that all comes off of
I need to save it for,
that your tech and all that kind of stuff? That all comes off of your drone count, honestly. It doesn't really come off of your larva. So your larva is not guaranteed in terms of what it's going to be spent on, because you don't know what your opponent's going to do exactly. Because if it was a perfect world, you could always say exactly what your opponent's going to do every game. You could say, on paper, you could be like, well, I will always build my buildings at this amount of time because of whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's really based off of the existing drones you have. And most games are standard to the point to where it's not going to be super different every single game. A lot of people do try to do standard builds. So it really comes down to, I throw down tech when I can afford tech, and that comes down to understanding how many drones you should have before you make it.
Okay, so you wouldn't throw down tech early, you would just throw it when you have the economy to actually make the units you want or whatever.
Because if you throw down tech early, if you throw down tech for the future early that you're not able to use until you can afford it anyways, but you throw it down early now, all it's going to do is make your economy suck even more, because you're adding in expenses you can't afford yet, and you're still trying to, like, limp your way into a good economy then. So building shit way too early is not good for you. The only exception to this for Zerg is you can very well throw down your Bane Nest or your Roach Warren early if you scout someone who looks like they're going to all in the crap out of you. Otherwise, if, like, we're talking, if like, let's just say hypothetically, your opponent's been more aggressive than you've anticipated, and you've had to make more lings than you anticipated, but you're still alive. And let's say by the time your layer's done, you have 12 less drones than you would have liked to have had. Like, let's say your main and natural look good, but your third base only has like 5 drones on it. And if right then you're throwing down like your Spire or your Hydra Den, I'd be like, that's way too fast. Because, like, if you do that kind of shit, and like you're also throwing down like double Evos, if you do stuff like that, you're gonna notice, if you go back and watch the replay, if this ever happens, you're gonna watch your larva always sit at like 4, 7, 5, 8, 3, 5, 9. Like, it's gonna just have numbers that are high repeatedly, because you can't spend it. Because you're, if you, even worse, if you're not even fully saturated and you start teching and then you also start trying to add gases to it. So now, like, let's say your main mineral line is at 15, your natural mineral line's at like 12, and your third mineral line's now at like 3. But now you have like 5 out of your 6 gases running. And you're, you know, it's because you're like limping your way into tech. You're going to have a problem where you're going to be like, well, I'm at like 900 gas and like 200 minerals, and I always have like 8 larvae sitting there. And this happens to so many players when they do shit like this. And it's where you have to make a judgment call based off how aggressive your opponent was throughout the early game to understand, like, okay, well, no matter what's happening, I need to just make sure that I take my tech when I can afford it, and then that'll be fine. And again, the only exceptions are Banes or Roaches. If you really, like, if your opponent's going mass Hellbats, obviously you don't want to make mass drones. Because
shout out to my boy Moose.
Yo, Fruitcell, thank you, man. He said shout out to you, dude. You don't obviously want to make just drones when you're fighting against, like, let's say if someone's doing a Hellbat all in, you're like, oh, well, okay, I need Roaches, dude, or I need Banes. That's totally fine. If you think you need a unit to not die right now, that's perfectly fine. But you do not need to advance your tech into something else if your economy sucks. Because Queens are more than enough early game to deal with, and so are Spore Crawlers, to deal with every single form of harass that can be thrown at you. So, like, Battlecruiser, Banshee, Raven, Liberator, whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. Queens can handle air, and you don't have to rush Hydras, and you don't have to rush a Spire to deal with air units, like, super fast if it means your economy is going to suck.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay. And the big thing I would say for you is, if you ever were paranoid about that, if you were like, oh, well, dude, I scouted someone who's going to go double BCs And he's been really aggressive with Hellions, and I've had to make more Lings than I've wanted to. What I would tell you to do, what I would personally recommend you to do in a situation like that, that's super awkward, just make more Queens than you normally would, and keep making drones. Like, try your best not to lose them, obviously. Like, have a stable ground defense army, whether it be roaches or whatever. But, like, just keep making Queens. If you're really paranoid about, like, some air that can attack you, maybe make, like, a couple extra spores. Maybe like one rally point spores. So this is also a big thing. Let me say this really fast. Excuse me. Versus standard things with air units that seem like it's like a good investment into air. Making like one spore crawler per minute line is pretty standard. It's normal. And the time you would want to make those would be like if you were thinking like, oh, BCs or cloaked banshees or something like that. One spore in the middle of your mineral line at like 4:30 would be fine. Like that's like a good average time to make them for everything, because banshees will hit you. Like banshees could literally hit you like at 4:40 even, or like 4:50 without cloak. With cloak, it would be hitting you probably like at 5:20 or so on average, like just after 5 minutes. Battle cruisers on average won't hit you till about 6 minutes, but if you make spores around like 4:30, it helps if the player is literally the kind of guy that's just gonna rush his banshees at your face. And you're kind of like paranoid about losing your drones, and it'll just help you deal with that, which would be fine. So hopefully that makes sense. And then if the player was the kind of guy that let's say you scouted his base and you were like, oh shit, this guy's literally going double tech labbed at starports with a fusion core. Like, oh, he's going double BCs. I would say it would be totally fine to add in what I call rally point spores. And what they are essentially is like, it's a spore crawler between your hatcheries where your creeps would have to rotate to defend base to base. So it allows your queens to always have a spore crawler covering them if the BCs go left or right around your hatcheries. So it would just be one spore between your bases essentially. Maybe 2 spores between your natural and third because it's such a far distance, but easily 1 spore between your main and natural.
Okay. I have an overlord back behind their base as well. I usually try to scout with that at like 4:30.
That's late. You want to, I would say you'd want to start scouting into his base right about now, from where it is.
Okay.
You want that overlord to like fly over the cliffside into his base at 4 minutes, if you can, so that like by 4:30 you're already actually seeing what he's doing. Because 4:30 is like right around 4:30 is actually a pretty critical moment in the game where you'll be able to see what he's opening with. And here's how you can read it, okay? This is how scouting reads would go. At 4:30, you would see, is he going for a third command center? Really fast, which means very light aggression, which means you can drone your ass off. Number 2 is he going for a high-tech build? Like, is he straight up going 1-1-1? And what is he doing in variation of that? Is it like tech lab on the starport? Is it reactor or on a factory? Is it tech lab on a factory? Like, what version of 1-1-1 is he doing, ideally? Like, what does it look like he's going to make? And the last one is he not teching, but instead is he overpowering lower tech production? Like, is he making multiple, like 2 factories? Is he making like 3 racks right now? Is he like powering hard on production of factory or barracks? So those are the 3 things you'd want to look for that are super crucial. The most common one you probably will see is 1-1-1. And then just behind that, the next really common one you'd probably see is a Terran who makes the third command center really fast. Oh, but 1-1-1 is probably the most common build that you would ever see.
Big fan of yours.
And
so you are the reason I continue to play SC2 less than 3 less than 3.
From that point,
sorry.
I saw one around like 4:30.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time? I had a alert went off and I couldn't hear anything you said.
No problem. If I saw a third command center at about 4:30, what drone count would I try to hit from there? Would it be higher than getting to 66 at that point? Compared to, what's the difference between seeing 2 barracks and seeing a command center?
It's so that is also again a little bit of a judgment call based on what's happening in the game. So basically, if you see a third command center in his base, you can very easily, off of like your safety lings that you have right now, you can saturate up to 3 bases and you'd be totally fine. You're not gonna die with your queen ling that you have if your opponent's going for just 1 racks, 1 barracks, or 1 racks and 1 factory. Like, they're not gonna kill you super fast. However, if your opponent attacks you and throws his units away, you could totally saturate a 4th base then. But if your opponent attacks you and he wipes your lings out and loses no units, like if he loads up into a medevac essentially and he kills a lot of your lings in the process, and then he comes back again and again, you're gonna have to make units then, and you can't just make drones for your 4th base. So the 3rd command center is an indicator, but how you handle his harassment is also the other part of that. And
So what about the other scenario where they have 2 barracks instead?
That I would say that's when you need to make a judgment call of you going, okay, what do I feel like I need here? A Bane Nest or a Roach Warren? And that really, a Bane Nest is good against multi-barracks almost always because it transitions well into anti-bio. I would much rather have speed Banes than speed Roaches against the bio. But if you see multi-factory, I would say that is a moment where I would recommend Roaches. So like you could make the Roach Warren or the Bane Nest before you take a layer if you haven't yet started your layer. If you saw multi-racks or multi-factory. And then if it was multi-factory and you made the Roach Warren right away, you could still start your layer pretty early because it doesn't cost gas to make a Roach Warren. But the Bane Nest does cost gas. So it would delay your layer a little bit more. But it's worth it if you think the guy's going to possibly do something like maybe he's going to SCV pull you with a big bio ball, or he's just going to have a lot more bio than he should really early. Those builds are more rare. I would say those builds probably happen. I don't know for a diamond. If I had to, from my experience when I played through beta GM and stuff, I would say these kinds of builds would probably happen to you 1 out of 20 games. Like, it's not common. It could happen though. But you'll probably play like 18 to 19 of your games out of 20 against people who either go for 1-1-1 or they'll go for a 3rd command center early if they're not straight up just doing a 1-base all-in. And by now you would already know if it's a 1-base all-in. You should have already known that if it was with your first Overlord Scout. So we're talking like 2-base builds here essentially. And this is where the variation comes in. There's there's a lot of variations of, so like when I say 1-1-1, it doesn't even just mean, oh, I know exactly what he's doing. Like there's like 10 versions of 1-1-1. It's actually insane. And that's why trying to get a read on what he can do. What is it going to be? A Hellion based 1-1-1? Is it going to be a Widowmine based 1-1-1? Is it going to be a tank based 1-1-1? Is it going to have Marauders? Is it going to have a lot of Marines? Is it going to have a Liberator? Is it going to have a Banshee? Is it going to have a Battlecruiser? Is it going to be a Viking flying around killing my Overlords? Is it going to be a Medevac drop 1-1-1? Is it going to be a straight push 1-1-1? Like there's fucking endless possibilities for Terran. So these are the things where getting a little bit of a read if you can will help. So there's 2 sides to the coin for scouting for Zerg. One is your Overlords, and if you go for Overlord speed, you do not have to go for Ling speed scouts like your Zergling scouts. If you do not go for Overlord speed though, okay, if you skip that, you have to fucking send Lings at his base. You have to, like you have to, like for instance, if you went to his ramp right now and you scouted him, you would run past that Marine and you would see Hellion. And you would go, okay, cool, this guy's going Marine Hellion, but only 1 Marine, so that Marine might be just an anti-scout denier. Like he might have had that thing just to push my Overlord away and he's still, that's just it. Which that's a thing. Another thing you can do if you don't get Overlord speed is you can skirt the sides of their base. So like if you look at everyone's vision and you go to your Overlord over the cliff, there is no way your Overlord could get punished if it flew to the mineral line area at his like 4th base above the starport, and then you would see, oh, he's got a tech lab starport. So this is a 1-1-1, and tech lab starport means 2 things. It means he's either going to go for Banshees or he's going to go for Battlecruisers. And here's a cool way you can know exactly what that means. This is where the advanced scouting comes in. I'm going to put play and just look at his starport, okay? Look at his starport, look at his factory, and try not to look at the bar above it. Like, look at your, or actually you can't look at your vision because you're not seeing it right now. But whatever, just look at it and look at like the animation of the building when it's actually building a unit. You can see like
talking about like the tab pushed in on the starport and the,
yeah, and like the sparks are flying and stuff.
Factories bouncing up and down.
Yeah. So you can see there's units being produced, and here's a cool trick. Now he's made it more obvious because now he's upgrading Cloak on the Starport Tech Lab. So now it looks very Banshee-ish. But here's a cool trick. If that Starport is producing a unit this fast, It is not a BC in production right now, and I know that 100% for sure without even knowing what this guy is doing in his base. And here's why. You cannot tech to a fusion core this fast. It is impossible. You also could not afford a BC this fast. It is impossible. So, if this dude is building a unit on a tech lab, it's either a Viking, because he's going to wait to build a BC, because he can't build one yet. And if a Viking popped out, then I would be, and he starts killing your Overlord with that, I'd be like, okay, you might be having a BC come at your base. There could totally be a BC. Because who the fuck is going to make a Viking first, and then make Banshees, when Banshees can get damage done faster, and the whole point of doing Tech Rush is to harass faster. So it's probably not going to be Banshees, because if he misses the window for Banshees to be effective, why go Banshees? You know what I mean? Like, that just seems silly. So if it was a Viking, it's very likely going to be a BC follow-up, and that's the only reason why it would make sense. Or nothing would be building at all, and he's just going to save for a BC, because a Viking is obviously, it's not free. Now, that's how you could tell that, with what that would be if it was a BC. It's either nothing, nothing should be being made, or it would be a Viking first. Now, if it's a Banshee, it looks like a Banshee, because if someone's going to produce out of a Tech Lab starport that fast, it seems very Banshee-ish, because it's before a Fusion Core could be done. A Fusion Core, honestly, would not be done until probably 4:30. Again, that's why your Overlord Scout would see that. That's why it's important to be in his base by then, if you can. Like, if you've spotted it right, like, early, and it's not, like, behind his natural or something. But, if it was a Banshee, starting now would be totally fine. And then if you actually spotted, oh, he's got a Tech Lab researching, then it looks super Banshee-ish. That is a very Banshee giveaway. The only other thing it could be is Raven energy, and it's very rare that someone is going to have enough gas to not only make a Raven, but also get the Tech Lab upgrade for it. Like, they'd have to have ridiculous gas investments. Like, the Natural would have to have, like, double gas as well right now, and only have, like, 4 SCVs on the mineral line, which is a horrible economy. So it's super rare. No one will ever usually open Raven like that with Raven energy. But most likely, like I said, it'll be probably Cloak, and, you know, then you're fine. And this is why, if it's like a Banshee build like this, if you take spores at like 4:30, if you start spores at like 4:30, what that means is your spores are going to be starting roughly around the time when his Banshees are starting to head to your base. And by the time his Banshees would get to your base, if he just beelines it right to your base, any one of them, your spores would be finishing roughly around the time Banshees get there. So that's how I would say you could read this. And obviously you can't see anything right now because your Overlords haven't moved yet. But just keep in mind, if you go Overlord speed, you can fly around his base all day. And if you don't go Overlord speed, you really need to like do extra shit, extra effort, where you skirt the sides, where you try not to lose your Overlord, but you do poke in and see the edges of his base without overcommitting the Overlord until 4 minutes, and then you kind of dive in. And then your Ling also needs to run over the front door repeatedly. Like, one Ling maybe every 40 seconds into the front door, just to spot what he's doing, if you haven't had any idea what he's doing. Because if you see that he's got Hellions, that's already a big deal too. You're like, oh, cool. Hellions are being made. I know that it's not going to be a bio push. Like, it could be bio Hellbat. Like, it could be one Rax producing units with Hellbats. You don't know that yet. But if you see that there's only like one bio unit, it seems unlikely that it's going to be a bio push. It's just, it gives you a better idea. Like, and also if you ran Lings in his base, you would rule out the fact that it's 2-on-1. You could kind of rule it out based off the factory timing earlier when you're with your first Overlord, because if the reactor and the barracks and the factory start at the same time, it's not really a 2-on-1. Let me ask you that really fast. Do you know how to tell the difference between a 2-on-1 and a just straight up looking like it's going to go into 1-1-1?
I don't think so, other than the second barracks, if I see that. But
so if you see a barracks with a reactor that's like basically done, which means he made the reactor first, and then you see so let's say the reactor is like 80% of the way done, or like 90% of the way done, and then he makes a factory.
My first Overlord, like,
yes, yeah,
I see the reactor instead of a Marine.
Yep. Well, like, he could even have a Marine still, but let's look at your vision, okay? And then you can see how there's a reactor and a factory, both at the top of his ramp as natural. The timing of this, like, we can't obviously see the health bars right now. Actually, that's another question I have for you really fast, because this is fucking huge if you don't have this on. Do you actually play with health bars on or not?
damaged usually.
Okay, so what I would recommend you do is go to options, go to gameplay, and then in top right where it says show unit life bars, put that on always. Because if you actually can't see health bars of buildings, it's it also tells you production. I don't ever play with damaged. I don't know if damaged actually shows you a building while it's under construction. But if for whatever reason, if you don't see fucking health bars on buildings while they're building, that is really not good. You need to fucking see that shit.
You can see the health bar while it's building until it has full health, and same with energy.
Okay, that's fine. Just make sure that when you look at a building, health bar represents production time because it's a percentage of how far along it is. And if you see a reactor that is faster than a barracks by a lot, so than a factory, Jesus. So if the barracks reactor is like 80%, and the factory is at like 10%. That is not a 111. Like, very unlikely. That looks very 211-ish. Because that means he invested his gas into the reactor before the factory. And there's no reason to do that because a factory takes longer to build than a reactor. So if you go factory first, you could time them together. And if you go reactor first, it'll be very lopsided where the reactor would be done way faster. So,
okay, so for 111, they're trying to have the reactor finished
to make Hellions. Yeah, to make Hellions.
Same time as the factory, so they can swap it right away.
Yes, like you don't want to be making like 8 Marines and then going, okay, now I'll make Hellions because I want to go for Hellions. Like if you're gonna go 211, making the reactor first makes sense because you'll have more Marines that way. But it doesn't make any sense to go 111 and have like 10 Marines or 8 Marines in front of your natural while you're trying to do a Hellion build. So that's how you can kind of tell the difference. If the factory's first, it's 111. It looks 111-esque. It doesn't have to guarantee that. It could, like I said, it could still deviate into like multi-factory. But it's at least not going to be heavy bio, like multi-racks. But if you see reactor done super early on barracks and then factory starts later and he shows you that, there could very well be another barracks in his base somewhere, like behind the mineral line or something, if you haven't spotted it yet. Because otherwise the reactor is going to be useless for the next like 30 seconds or 40 seconds. All right. Then, so you got your gas saturated after the natural mineral line is fully saturated. This is good. Your layer starting time is fine. It's good. You're still droning your ass off. I do not like your link positioning though. This is another thing I was gonna say earlier that I kind of forgot about for a second, but I'm gonna say it now. Overlords 1 and 2, other than the fact that you haven't really scouted very much, and you've been playing this really blind, your positioning for them initially is good, but you should definitely work on scouting more. Because like this game, for instance, you did scouted nothing. But Overlords 3, 4, and 5, you put those behind your main base, like on the edge of the airspace behind the main. What you should do is, like, basically Overlords 3 and beyond need to be fixed, and here's how you want to do it. 3, 4, 5 should go in basically every entrance to your base. So Overlord 3 could go in front of your natural and between your natural and your main. That'd be fine. That's usually where you'll put it on most maps. And then, for instance, like when you get creep there, you could put it over the rocks at your third. Or, not the third. You see that big line of rocks that covers the ramp, like in front of your natural? If you go straight down the ramp and go in a straight line. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you put your Overlord like above those, that'd be a great spot to put your first Overlord that's defensive, which is your third Overlord in overall. It could be sitting above that, and it would spot over the rocks so you can see if anyone's rotating left and right to go towards your third or go around it back to your natural. Overlord 4, because it should go wherever you take your third base, Overlord 4 should go to that side first. So if your third base is on the left side of your natural, that's fine. Overlord 4 should be near now the rocks at your third base. So like where your creep queen is standing over there putting her tuber down, that's where Overlord 4 should be, like in front of those rocks, kind of like instead of your lings being out here, that's where the Overlord should be, like just kind of south of the rocks. So you see a big open area here. And then Overlord 5 should be on the opposite side of that. Now, if you look at like go to the right of the rocks where your first Overlord would have been. Look at the rocks that have like bushes over them, and it's like between that little like cliff choke point, and then that's where your fourth base is as well. The last Overlord you have should be kind of like maybe on top of that cliff or in that area, just giving you a vision range of going, are Hellions going to come from this side, or are units going to attack me from this side? So 3 Overlords defensively after your first 2 go scout, if that makes sense. And it's
I need to pull those back towards my base at some point?
Yeah, like I would say once your creep touches them, you don't have to have them out there anymore.
Okay.
But the big thing that it is if you ever use your Lings to defend like this, and they're just in the middle of fucking nowhere, and he runs at your Lings with the Hellions, and let's say you get roasted, you've already fucked yourself. You do not actually
That's actually what happens this game.
Yeah.
So you'll get to see it.
You do not ever want your Lings to fight Hellions until he decides to run past your Queens. Do not ever be that guy that goes, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to chase Hellions off creep because I'm going to just fucking surround them and kill them. If you do that, that is super risky, and that needs, like, it needs to work. Like, it needs to be a successful attack for that to happen. If you're ever the guy, though, that gets caught off guard where you just don't even realize it's happening, and you're like, oh, my Lings are dying. Like, that's already fucked. That's so bad. But ideally what you want to do is you want your Overlord positioning to spot where he attacks you from so that your Queens can always get in his face before he gets there. So if he's outside your third, you could have your Queens on the edge of a creep in front of your third. And he tries to drive into your third, he gets smacked by Queens. If he decides to YOLO and run past the Queens, your Lings then jump on him, and that's when how your Lings get used. If he decides to not YOLO past your Queens, just let him go back. Don't chase him, just let him be out there. That's fine. Overlords are spotting everywhere he goes. If he rotates all the way around to the right, and he goes past your other Overlord in bottom right of your main base, like at the bottom area between your main and natural, where that cliff is. Now suddenly this Overlord's spotting him. Your Queens rotate, and you've seen him. Also, the Overlord over the rocks is watching him rotate. You're literally watching everywhere his Hellions go. You have checkpoints of these 3 Overlords that keep going. There he is. There he is. There he is. And you keep zoning him every time before he gets to wherever he wants to be. And now if his Hellions are located bottom right of your creep, you send your Queens down there as well. And then he tries to drive in, your Queen starts smacking him again. Like, Queens will kill Hellions really fast. If you have 4 Queens, each Queen does 8 damage per hit. Hellions have 0 armor. So if you have 4 Queens hitting a Hellion, that's 32 damage, which is more than a third of the Hellion's health bar. And a Queen also has an attack speed of 0.71. It's the same as a Hydralisk. And, or actually, no, Hydra is actually a little bit faster than that. But a Queen is 0.71. It doesn't matter, who cares. It's super fast either way. So one group of Queens can kill a Hellion if you have like 4 Queens, which is the standard amount of Queens you'd want to have the creep spread in an average game. So your Queen count is kind of low this game. But if you have like 4 Queens spreading creep, you would be able to kill a Hellion every 2 seconds essentially. If he drives in and drives away, if it takes 2 seconds for him to realize what he's doing and then he runs away, Hellion's dead. And that's fucking huge. Or either that, or you, like, if your Queens hit multiple Hellions, you just pepper damage into them, and Hellions cannot regenerate unless he physically goes home and repairs them, or he drops a mule to repair them. Both of those options suck for Terran. You don't want to waste money like that or time like that. So whatever damage you do to Hellions is permanent, and that just makes your Ling's life easier every time he does. If he ever does decide, okay, it's time to YOLO, your Lings just have a better chance to kill him. So your Queen count this game is super lacking. You have only 4 Queens in total when you want to have about 7 minimum in total.
Yeah, I think that has to do with supply block this game. So given that I don't have enough Queens, should I be pulling Queens off of my natural and third to help at this point, since I saw Hellions leave their base? Or should they stay?
I would say just make it big effort in the future to never stop making Queens. Like, to make sure you always get enough. Because if you don't have enough Queens to fight Hellions, and then you only have 1 Queen, yeah, you need to pull your Queens off your hatcheries to help that, because you're just going to definitely die if that happens. But if you pull your Queens off your hatcheries, and you don't have any injects going on now either, you're going to die in the mid-game. It's like, are you going to die soon, or are you going to die later? Because both of those fuck you over really bad. So if that ever happens, yes, pull your Queens off if you need to, if you see an attack coming. But just make a big effort to not let this happen, because it's very easy to avoid it. Like, you should definitely be able to, like, for instance, if you're supply blocked, start Queens as you're supply blocked and be like, the second this Overlord finishes, I am not going to fucking forget to make my Queens. Like, they need to start. You definitely want to have more Queens than 4 at 5 minutes. Because yeah, like, it's one of those things where I there's no correct answer here to go, well, this is how you would micro out of this. They both fuck you over. You just need more queens.
Okay, so ideally I would have 7 queens. So I'd have 3 injecting and then the rest in a control group. Is that how you would normally do that?
Yeah, that's how I would do it. Yeah, for sure. Okay. And then if you actually scouted 1-1-1 with overlords, you could actually take it even further and go, well, I could actually make like 9 queens now, if you want to. It's not one of those things where it always has to be 7. 7 is minimum. 7 is standard minimum. But if you want to, if it seems like it makes sense to make more because your opponent's going for like Hellion Banshee, like he is, you could make literally like 9 if you wanted to, just to be extra safe.
A bit more. When would you want more or fewer queens?
So 7 is always go 7 every game is what I'm saying for the minimum. Never go lower than 7. Always make 7 no matter what, and do that as fast as you can. Spin larva first, make queen second, but literally try to do both. If you ever want to go above it, you can do it as a response to scouting. Like what I mean is, if you scout 1-1-1 and you saw a Banshee and you go, I fought this before, it seems kind of scary, I'm just gonna make an extra 2 queens. That'd be totally fine. Like so what
if I want them for defense? Yeah.
So what I'm saying is like right now you should roughly have about 7 queens right now. But if I say you should, if I'm like you could go to 9 or you could go to like 11. You shouldn't have them also at 5 minutes. That's something you can continue to make as the game progresses. But like right about now, honestly, you should have probably around 7 queens. Or like just about to have 7. And right now you have 4 and you're soon to have 6. Like in the next like 13 seconds, which is just super late.
Gotcha.
And there's Hellbats. And this is when queens would help. Right here, right now. If you had more queens right now, these queens could buy you so much time against Hellbats because they could transfuse against them. They could act, like queens they cannot kill Hellbats super fast. They can though. They can kill them, just not super fast. But it would buy you time to do things that you might need as well. Like for instance, if you wanted to make Banes now, while queens bought you time, you could do that. Or whatever. Like if you actually, I'm not going to expect this out of Diamond, but you could actually micro this in a way where you could use your Zerglings, and this is how you would want to do that. Okay, let me explain this. Hopefully it makes sense, but just know this is not easy. I do this shit in my own games, but this is hard micro. Concave of Hellions, or rather Hellbats, versus concave of queens. If you micro every queen, like imagine like your finger, like look at your fingers for a second. This will hopefully make sense. Make like a fist really fast and like look at your hand, and then if you like extend your fingers and you have your fingers kind of connected and then you also spread your fingers out, your fingertips are way more spread out than they were when you made a fist. And if you have a really tight concave of queens, your lings, if they try to help, they'll all die. Super easy. Because a concave of Hellbats is gonna just fucking shit on a concave of like lings. Like if you just run a clump versus a clump, lings are gonna die. So if your queens spread the Hellbats out, because your queens spread out, and you have like 2 Hellbats chase queen on the left, 2 Hellbats chase the queen on the right, 2 Hellbats chase the queen in the middle left, and 2 Hellbats chase the queen in the middle right. So you just literally spread queens out in like a fan formation, like you just make a wider concave. You don't have your queens stacked anymore, you spread them all out 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. And Hellbats chase 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. If you then tell your lings to help, your lings have to fight like 1 or 2 Hellbats at a time, which means they will actually not just get immediately roasted and die. And you'll get full surrounds on Hellbats, and you'll actually pick Hellbats off that way. That's the only way you can use lings against Hellbats. If you can't micro that, though, it is hard. I'm not lying. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's super hard to do that, because you have to micro a lot there. But if you can't do that, you would just need, literally right here, you would need either a Spine, Banes, or Roaches. And a Spine obviously is not an option because he's already here because you didn't scout it fast enough. So Spine is no longer an option. You would have had to have made that before he left his base. If you saw an Armory and fucking 1-1-1 and you're like, oh, Hellbats, and I don't have time to make a Baneling nest and then make Banes or Roaches. I need a Spine like now. That way it finishes like as it gets to your base. That could work. A Spine would be great though if you had it. But otherwise, again, if you like gonna react to it now, you can't make a Spine now. It's too late. You need to just make either Banes or Roaches now, and obviously your choice is now Banes, which are almost ready to go. But now it's really awkward because you can't make Banes in a defensive location. You're like exposed. So that's super awkward for you, where your Lings are. And then they all just die. So like that's that moment where that kind of just sucks. And now this is one of those moments where you got to realize the way ZvT works. This is a very punishing matchup. There's always an initial battle that sets the pace for the entire game. And this game, the initial battle is this point right in the game right now. Every Terran is going to harass you one way or the other. It's very rare you'll play a Terran player that's like, I'll just play defensive and never attack. But right now, you're already now behind. Because his attack is doing more damage than it should. You would be ahead if his attack showed up and you had, let's say, like 5 Banes already, and he just waddled in his Hellbats and like 2/3 of them died, and then your Queens cleaned up the rest of the Hellbat and the Banshee. Then obviously you'd be way ahead. But now I would say this dude is ahead, and he's already ahead because of what's happened. He's already made you pull your whole mineral line, and anything from here that further goes in his favor is even further putting him ahead. So if the hatchery dies, he's super far ahead. If a lot of drones die, he's super far ahead. But just straight up, he's already ahead just because of what's happened. Like, this sucks. This is something you want to avoid, which is why you have to scout. So you can prepare for things like this. And now it's also making you make a shitload of Lings. And I would say this is also way too many Lings to make at this point. It seems confusing because you're like, what ViBE? He's attacking me. But look at this. Look at his base right now. He has a 3rd command center. So the more Lings you make now, the more fucked you are. Because now you're becoming an all-in and he's not. And at this point, if you're not opening into an all-in and instead you're doing like a panic reaction into like, and you might not even realize this is happening because you're just trying to defend the attack. But if you make a lot of larva into Lings, it actually puts you in a position where you're now all in. Because if you don't actually attack him like he's attacking you, and you don't get damage done on his base like he's getting damage done on you, you're always going to be behind. And you're going to feel it all game now. And you're going to be like, oh god, every time he attacks me I just get murdered. Because I just don't have enough stuff. I mean, I'm glad you at least saved the drones, though. That is helpful, but yeah, this is like overdoing it on Ling Bait at this point. And this is why if you made Queens, like just more Queens would have crushed this. Queens would have handled this attack really hard. Just a couple Banes and like 7 Queens or 5 Queens, 4 Queens, whatever. Like you could have it, honestly, if you think about it, you could have had 5 because you could have 4 Creep Queens and you could have whatever base he attacks, that Queen can also help. So if it's the 3rd base, your 3rd Queen that's injecting can also help in that fight for that moment. And then he's running away too, or is he? If he actually goes home now, this is even worse for you. Because now he just did all that damage and he didn't even lose his army. Which is fucking rough. So what you should do in a position like this now, there's 2 ways you'd have to play this out. 1, do something cost efficient with what you have. And the only thing you could do with what you have that could be cost efficient, honestly, is if you got Overlord speed right now and you started doing Baneling drops. And if you fucking dropped all over a mineral line and wiped out 25 SCVs or something, that is the only way you're going to get back in the game with what you have that is cost efficient. Because if you Nidus or something like that, like, or if you just straight up bust the door down, you're not going to fucking kill him. Like you're going to be too far behind. But at least Baneling drops can be surprising and you might kill a mineral line. But that is the only way you will catch back up to a good position in this game if your opponent is playing a solid game himself. So here's the thing where like StarCraft's games sometimes don't make sense. If you're still ahead, if you in theory are still ahead after what he just did to you, all that means is that you're a better player than he is. Because you should definitely not be ahead right now. Like, and what I know you're ahead in supply, but that's not that huge of a deal. Like, you didn't lose your drones, you just lost the hatchery. You should fall behind in supply shortly after this. But what I mean in terms of ahead or behind, it's like the overall pacing of the game. He should definitely be ahead of you based off of what just happened. Because he killed your 3rd, he pulled your whole mineral line away, he killed some of your, like a couple of your Queens, some of your Lings died. You've lost 2,000 resources. He's lost 2 Hellions. And he didn't lose anything else in that attack. And he also opened up with a 1-1-1 into a third, so it wasn't even an all-in for him. He should definitely be fucking super far ahead. So, again, in a position like this, if you just recede to playing standard, you will die versus Terran. So, like, if you find yourself in positions like this, doing something cost-efficient makes sense to try and get yourself back in the game. So, an aggressive way to do it is to drop him with Lings and Banes and shit like that. And
this is because I made too many Lings and Banes, right? And then he just ran away.
It's because you made too many Lings and Banes after he had killed your shit already. Like, if you made these already before you what's it called? Let me say it like this. If you would have made this many Lingbane before he attacked you, and you would have crushed his attack, I still think, like, you would have been ahead, but not as ahead as you could have been. It's still way too many fucking units defensively. Like, you could have defended that attack. It was like 7 Hellbats or 8 Hellbats and a Banshee. You could have defended that with Queens, which don't cost larva. And if again, that goes back to the point of, like, if you had them or not. And, like, 5 Banelings. Legit, you could have easily defended it with, like, that much. And you could have made those 5 Banes out of your safety Lings you made earlier. Like, you could have, instead of having 12 Lings straight up, you could have had 7 Lings and 5 Banes. And 5 Queens at your third base, because you would have had 4 Spiders and 1 Injector that could have helped. And you would have crushed that attack. However, you just lost 39 units. A lot of those were Lings. And then you also made a new army of 21 Lings and 14 Banes. That is so much fucking Lingbane that has been made. And that alone is fucking you over. That basically, you know how, like, when you, like, saturated your 3 bases really fast? That was really nice. That was really good. And you still do have 3 base saturation, but it really can't mine properly for the most part, because your natural is super oversaturated. But with how many Lingbane you just made, it's similar to, like, think about it like this. The way that your third base was saturated really fast because you made only a little bit of Lingbane. Imagine now in the early game, if your third base only had like 2 drones on it, and instead of only making like 12 to 14 Lings, you made 40 Lings, and then you saturated your third base. That is essentially what's just happened to you now at this point of the game, because your opponent went for an attack that you could have killed, and then he also took a third behind it. So if the way it's reacted is ideally, if you would have scouted his base and you would have known that his attack had a third command center behind it, you would have wanted to make a lot less Lingbane than you did, because you would have still been fine if you did that, because it's not an all-in. And then you would have bounced back faster into saturating your 4th base, because you're behind from the attack because you took a lot of losses, and now he's got a third, but you're even further behind because now you've delayed how fast you can saturate your 4th, which is what you want to have if he's got a third. I hope does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. So that's the fucking hard part about ZvT, and that's why scouting is mandatory. Like, you have to scout, because it gives you understanding of, like, what makes sense for what game you're in. And ZvT, don't beat yourself up too. Honestly, this is my genuine feeling of how the matchup is. Do not beat yourself up over ZvT. In terms of, like, oh man, like, this matchup just feels impossible right now. It's really hard. I feel like it's really hard for a lot of Zergs. Like, this matchup is super difficult right now. Like, Terran is in a bit of a scary position in the game right now. Like, they're fucking strong. So it's just something to work on and slowly, gradually get better at it over time. But TVZ is fucking scary for Zerg in early game. And now you're going into Hydrogen, you're going into defensive. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, where it's like, I'm glad you're expanding more, you're faster. You're taking up to 5 bases really quick now. But look what you're building. You're building Lings and Banes. And I want you to know something really fast, okay? This kind of a playstyle is going to cap out. Like, you're not going to be able to beat Masters turns like this probably. And the reason why is because you're putting the game in a position where you're behind, and the way you're going to react from being behind is you're not doing much cost efficiency. You're sitting back still defensively, making units. And what this is doing to you is it's putting you into an all-in. Like, I know you have more drones than he does, and it sounds weird. But the only reason why this is happening is because this Terran doesn't macro very well. Legit. Like, he should fucking have way more than he does because you've killed nothing so far this game at his base. But against a good Terran that can macro against you, which is what you'll run into in Masters, if you take damage like that, if you have awful scouting like that, you should feel like you've already fucked yourself. You should feel that way. You should not feel like, oh, the game is still standard. And then if you don't do something cost efficient, whether it be really greedy, where you take a risk greedy-wise, or if you overmade units because you were really paranoid, if you don't do some way, shape, or form to make those units now do some damage to him back at his base, if you just do nothing and sit there, you're putting the game in the Terran's hands where you go, I hope you make a mistake. Please attack me on creep in a horrible way where I kill your army. That's what you're saying, essentially, to yourself. And you might not realize it, but when you play against bad Terrans that will allow you to win that way, it feels like it makes sense. You're like, oh, okay, cool. I recovered and he died on creep. But against a good Terran, they will punish you for this all day because you will always feel like you're on defense and you will always feel like you're behind because good Terrans will always harass you and they will make you all in them. Like, good Terrans don't just pull the trigger and go, okay, well, now it's time for me to all in for no reason. Good Terrans will harass you all day. So the way he attacked you the first, his attack was solid. It was super good. He did damage and he backed off. But then his macro behind it was not great. And obviously I don't know what he's going to do from here, but if he just all-ins you now on creep, like it's not necessarily needed. It doesn't need to happen. But like right now, he should be dropping like Hellions in your main base, or dropping like driving Hellions at your third again, or doing random attacks, having a Banshee attack your base. I mean, he got Cloak and he hasn't done anything with it since then. And now he's going for a big timing. Like this Terran doing this, you have a chance to win this game right now. He does not need to do this. He should be harassing you, not all-inning you right now. This is literally all-inning you because his entire army is going to your base. And like, look at his mineral lines right now. Third base, fully exposed. Natural, fully exposed. Main base, exposed. Obviously, he does have new units in production. Actually, no, he doesn't. He has 4 Marines sitting at the barracks, and that's it. He has nothing in production. Like, this dude is so susceptible to an all-in, like a counter timing right now, if you somehow did that. Like, if you saw his army move out, like you did with your Overlord, and you did a run-by at his base, like right now, you could ruin this guy. So, this dude is doing something really risky that he doesn't need to do. And again, like I said before, you'll play, like, as you progress, you'll play against Terrans who won't play this risky. I feel like you could win the game still here. It's very possible because of what he's doing. So just know, again, I hope it makes sense. I just want to say this because I don't want it to be confusing. I don't want you to be like, well, ViBE, you're telling me a lot of shit, and I don't know what the point is. The final point I'm trying to make here again is, best case scenario, you scout what Terran's doing and you react to it in a way where you get the lead. This obviously was not the lead because your third died, and that sucked. If you find yourself in a spot though where you overmade units and he just backed off, a great, clever way to fix your problem there would have been literally getting Overlord speed and doing like Bane drops. Because you have way too many units sitting there for way too long that are just going to do nothing. Like, gotcha. It's okay to, like, if you were on 80 drones though, I would have been like, yeah, make units all day, go for it. But you were on like 60 drones when you did that. And that's the scary point. When if you overmake units on like 60 workers, the only way you win games from that position is if your Terran opponent has terrible fights. Right, nice spread. Gotta be really careful though. Like, your north side of the spread is getting to his army so much faster than your south side. Okay, there you go, perfect. Yeah, you did this attack really well. You were patient. You made Banes. Super good defense here. This is really good. I would say there's only one other thing you could have done. It's not even necessarily better. There was 2 options you had, and you picked the second option, which is just make more Banes. I think it's totally fine. And you executed it really well. You were patient. You lined it up where you're both sides of your army are engaging at the same time. You're not having one engage super fast because you actually engaged with your south side first, and then you told the north side to go. So really well done on this attack. That was super good defense. The other way you could have done it is what you can do as well. This is a bit more of like a pull the trigger really fast kind of a thing. If this Terran is not sieged and his entire army is balled up, you could dive on him right away, and you could prevent him from sieging before you actually start killing him. That could also work. So you could have fought him 15 seconds ago as well. I'm not saying it's better. It's just it's an option you could have had. But the way you did it with the patient option, super well done. I actually think this is better as well, and here's why. The hardest thing most players struggle with is understanding how to be patient. So many fucking Zerg players, in general, just panic if they get into the habit where like the first way to defend this is like what they always do, and they always panic, and they're like, I'm just gonna always attack and have like a horrible fucking attack because I'm not ever gonna set anything up. And like something like this one would have made sense if you did it, but it doesn't always make sense. Like some people do it after the tanks are sieged. And it's like, okay, maybe you should have like went for a flank and maybe some more Banes or whatever. But the fact that you played it patient is super good because you actually need to have that ability to play that way at higher levels. So really good shit. I'm super impressed by your attack right here. This is very fucking good.
Thank you.
Now, really quickly, I just want to pause it one more time and say, I'm going to ask you one more thing, and I want to just make sure you're microing it right though. Walk me through how you would micro this fight right now. Like, what would you do from this point? Would you, like, for instance, like you have group 2, which has Banes, and you have 25 Banes, but group 2 has 30, so I imagine that's mostly Banes. Would you, like, okay, I'll tell you what I would do. Because I don't know if you're talking. If you were thinking about it, that's totally fine.
Oh, okay. I guess I was on mute.
Okay. I was like, shit. Is he nervous?
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
No, I've already A-moved. I had my army split in half on control group 1 and 2, and I A-moved both.
Okay.
And then what I think I should do is control click Banes and move command them towards the not tanks. But I don't think I did that.
Sure. I would say control clicking them is not as good. I mean, you bound them to a group, it looks like, so have like group 2 do it, but perfect, yeah. So have like group 1 just a move, that's fine, and have group Baneling like move to the Marines and just try to like detonate all over the Marines and the Hellions and stuff like that, and that'd be great. So they're not just bouncing into a tank and all dying. But yeah, otherwise good shit. It's simple. It's not that hard. I'm glad that you understand that. It's really good. And like that fight for you, this is what we're talking about, where I'm like, the Terran does not need to do this. And the playstyle you were playing with was hoping the Terran makes a mistake, and luckily for you, the Terran did. And so this time it worked out. You're like, wow, I'm back in the game, boys. We're back in it. Because what that just did for you is it allowed you to do whatever you want now. You can make more drones if you want to. You can like capitalize on extra saturation if you feel like you need to. You can now counterattack him if you want to, because you just wiped out an army. You can make sure he doesn't get a 4th base. You can creep spread for free now all day. Like, this Terran just gave you the map, essentially. And, like, why did he do that? Like, it doesn't make any sense why he attacked you right there. It was just YOLO. But just know, better Terrans, once you like, progress through the ranks, they won't do that anymore. Like, Terrans are a lot better nowadays. They will make your life a living hell if you fall behind by just harassing you and harassing you and harassing you and harassing you. It'll feel awful. All right. But now, like, the game is kind of stabilized, so realistically, you can really do whatever you want now. Like, now it's just going to be, how do you set up your attacks more than anything else? Like, we'll talk about it when we get there in a second. But here's a great way to do it, okay? Also, here's a tip as well, because I'm just watching this Banshee do way too much damage, and I didn't realize you didn't build spores. If you ever confirm that there's Banshees, or if you just in general, if you're at a point like around like let's say you're fully saturated, like you're at that point now where you're like, well, I'm making nothing but Hydras and Lings and Banes because I have max drones. I would highly recommend, if you haven't done it already through the opener of the game, make 1 spore crawler per base. because this will help you deal with shit like this if it randomly happens later on in the game, because some Terrans might do shit like this. But what it also does is it also puts pressure on him if he tries to drop you with Medivacs, because the Medivacs actually get poked by spore damage while he tries to go around your bases. So it makes it harder for him to harass your mineral lines, and then it makes it, you know, easier for your drones to stay a little bit safer. But the fact that you have no Stag D still at this point in the game, even though he opened Cloak Banshee, is crazy. And like this Banshee is doing so much damage. And it's just, it's not game-ending damage right now. It's just fucking annoying damage that doesn't need to be happening for you.
Could you pause for a second? I have another question.
Sure.
At this point in the game, like right now, if you look at my Evo chambers, I have 2-2 ready to start, but I don't have enough gas for that. I feel like that's pretty normal for me. A lot of that went into Hydras and Banes just now.
Sure.
How do I know when it's a priority to start the next upgrades? Is that something that I should do instead of making Hydras and Banes?
It's based off of
wait on?
It's based off map control. If you have map control, start upgrades is a priority. If you don't have map control and you're like you're gonna get attacked like you did a minute ago, start units, because if you're in the threat of getting killed, upgrades aren't gonna be done for like 2 minutes anyways. It's not the pressing matter at that moment in time, and if you need those units at that time, make those units as a priority. But like when you had, for instance, when you killed that attack, because you killed that attack a while ago, right? So like we'll just back it up really fast to like right after you killed that attack, and we'll speed it up to where we just were a second ago. So you take the fight, you kill this army right now, and we look at your production, and your upgrades are almost done, and you have like 800 resources for gas and minerals. You can make units right now, that's fine. You can do whatever you want right now. But that's totally fine. But like while you're making units right now, your upgrades just finished. Right now, you could totally start the upgrades, and that would be just fine. You just killed an army, and your upgrades are now done. So this is like the perfect time to again, the upgrades just finished, and you have, again, it happened during a time when you have control of the game. So this is a perfect time to take those upgrades.
Same logic apply to Hive, things like that.
To Hive Tech, you said?
Yeah. Apply to tech.
Hive Tech, like tech in general, is more based off of your economy. Upgrades, it's really the same with upgrades, to be honest. But like, for instance, here's a for instance, okay? It's not going to take you that long to get upgrades. Like it's pretty fucking cheap in terms of the fact that if you have like 80 drones, you'll make those resources really fast. The only reason why you're not making those resources really fast is because ever since you've retaken the third base, you have not saturated the gases. So that's a problem for you. Like that's definitely fucking your gas up a lot. And like if you think about the fact that you took your third base, and you're like, if your gases should have been fully saturated by 6 minutes, and in 4 minutes after that, you've only managed to mine 250 gas out of one of the gases and 60 gas out of the other. Like, this is a result of your third base dying from earlier, which again fucked you over. Like these gases should have mined way more than that. Like we're talking like probably like 300 more per gas. But so that's a big that like it's a ripple effect, right? That has dividend that pays like or it has effects that carry throughout the game. It's not just like it doesn't matter. But when you have control, upgrades can literally just be a priority. Like if you go, oh, I want to still spin my larva, but I also want to get my upgrades now because of when one's done. Just make lings and overlords if you need them, but just make lings mostly because they're not gas at all, and then just make your upgrades and then go back to making Banes and Hydras, and you'd be totally fine. And then the same thing with your tech too. Like make it like if you have control of the game too, like you said when you were asking about tech in the Hive, that's also same thing. Just cut gas costs, because you don't have to gradually make Banes, and you don't have to gradually make Hydras. You can literally burst those out in rounds for Zerg. So when you have control of the game, pace your build and then go back to your units. That's totally fine. That's what you should do. Like you don't want to sit here making like 20 Hydras right now, and then at the cost of making your Hive, and then make the Hydra, and then make the Hive later, which is going to severely delay your upgrades and your like ultras or whatever. But again, just you have to realize too, the big reasons why that's happening to you is because you're at 10 minutes and you have not taken any gas at your 4th or your 5th yet, Like, you've started the gases at your 5th, but like the fact that you only have been mining off of 2 gases pretty much, or 2 bases of gases pretty much this entire game is very low gas. So you, like, the 3rd base hasn't done shit with the gas really that much since it died. And the 4th base and the 5th base haven't done anything with the gas yet at all. This is super low gas based game, which is, again, at 10 minutes you should have a lot more gas invested than this. Like, you should have, honestly, like 10 gases rolling already at like maybe like 9 minutes.
So when on your first few bases, you usually want to fill up the mineral lines before you take gases, but for like your 4th and 5th bases, do you undersaturate minerals for gas usually?
The 4th and 5th bases, it doesn't matter, and this is why. You should have enough larva to insta-saturate the base on everything. You should be able to make a round of 20 drones at once. So another thing you're not doing that I would love for you to do in the future, and I think a reason why you didn't do it this game possibly is because your 3rd died, and you made a macro hatch as your 5th base instead. But I would love it if you make a macro hatch as well. Like as soon as your 3rd base is fully saturated and you start your 4th, I want you to start making a macro hatch like in your main base or something like that, so you have more larvae. Because again, like seriously, when you have 5 hatcheries being injected, and you're like, oh, I want to make drones for this next base, I have a moment to do that, you will have rounds of larvae that are like 20, 24, 18. Like, you'll have big fucking rounds of larvae then. So that won't be, that you don't have to worry about saturating gas first or mineral line first. It's just literally put a bunch of shit on the base all at once and then take the gas as well. And then you're fine. And then again, this is where a judgment call comes in based off of what you've made. So if you already have 2,000 gas in the bank and you have 900 minerals in the bank and you're going to expand again because your bases are mining out, when you expand again, I would say you don't necessarily need to make the priority gas if you're going to keep making a bunch of fucking zerglings. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to still focus on high mineral, you probably want to focus on mining high mineral and don't have undersaturated mineral lines. However, if you're having gas problems, you want to definitely focus on saturating those gases. But you have to also understand, like, how much does a baneling cost in gas? How much does a Hydra cost in gas? How much does whatever unit I'm going to make cost in gas? And how much resources do I actively have right now? And make a priority there. So, and like, it doesn't have to be too complicated where you don't have to do like math equations about everything. It's just like, do I have a shitload of gas? Well, maybe I need to mine minerals for a little while. Or do I have a shitload of minerals and have like no gas? Well, maybe I need to make more of a priority to mine gas faster at new expansions. Ideally, you want to have everything all the time, but whatever. But again, that's assuming everything's perfect. It's not always perfect. Like, people will make messes in your gameplay, just like how he made a mess of your 3rd base. So if he does that and you have to recover, I would say definitely you want to take all your gases and mine them all now because your gas is fucked up.
That's good to know.
And then again, it just comes down to like what you're making as a composition. And Lingbane Hydra is very gas light because you're not maxing Hydras and you're also not maxing Banes. It's mostly Lings in that army. It's a big chunk of what's getting made there. So your gas will definitely go up. But if you were to go into like Lurkers or like Infestors or something, or like Ultralisk, that's definitely going to spend your gas resource a lot faster. Alright, one thing that I think you really need to do, though, I think your weakest point as a player is your scouting. Like you were saying earlier. Like, it's not just your base scouting, it's your map awareness scouting. And one way you can fix that, 2 ways you can fix that would be, number 1, if you just make more queens on average, you'll have better creep spread, which is indirect scouting. It shows you, if I see creep here and I don't see him there, I know he's not there, which means he's somewhere else. And the more creep you have, the smaller of an area that the Terran has to be where he could be. You know what I mean? It sounds weird, but
yeah,
it makes sense though. And then, so that's it. What's one form of scouting? So more queens, more creep is great. I think your creep spread could be a little bit better. And the second thing is, what I want you to start doing, I want you to start setting lings out. Not like all of them, just like a ling at least. To be like, does he have a third? Does he have a fourth? Like at the fourth? Does he have a fifth? Like check where his expansions are more often, so you know, you have an idea where you can attack, and it's not just a panic move whenever you attack his base, and it's not just always attacking his natural. Also, changelings are so good. Most people, especially in Diamond League, don't value changelings enough, and most people in Diamond League, as your opponents, don't even ever, they're not even aware of changelings half the time, like, or most of the time. If you actually sent this, if you took this Overlord, if you just held down the changeling button and just shit out 4 changelings, you could send one of them to his 4th, one of them to his 3rd, one of them to his 5th, one of them to his natural. You could find where his army is, and you could watch where he moves it, and you can preset fights against him. Like, for instance, if you watch him leaving his base slowly, you could, like, Baneling Bust his depots at his 3rd and break the fucking command center as he's just barely out of position. And then you could run away. Or you could just blow up a mineral line. Or, if you see him with changelings running on the, before he gets to your creep, but you see him running towards your creep, you could set up a fight where as soon as he walks on your creep, you already are going to flank and kill him. Like, it just shows you ways you can set up so many fights if you just use scouts. And you know where he goes, rather than being blind all the time.
A lot of things like that I tend not to do because I don't know when to do them.
You should be doing them all the time.
Just all the time.
Yes. Like, you should never feel like that. You should never, this is a bad feeling for a Zerg player. Like, if you were to watch, like, Cyril play, he would probably be scratching his fucking neck so hard, like, ripping his hair out if he felt like this. If he was playing a game of StarCraft, where if you're playing a game where if you look at your vision, you are blind to half the map right now, and you have one Overlord on the left side of the main, or an Overseer on the left side of his main base that is just chilling there, he would be like, what is the Terran doing right now? Like, what is going on? Is he going fucking, is he 3 base? Is he 4 base? Is he 5 base? Is he 2 base? Is he making bio still? Is he going into some transition? Where is his army? Like, there's so much you can say about reading a game as if you're ahead or behind, not only off of the fact of going like this. Oh, there's a battle. We collide. I killed your army. It means I'm ahead. It doesn't always mean you're ahead. You need to basically be able to read a game in a way where you can go, how much bases do you have compared to how many bases do I have? Because in StarCraft 2, especially in Legacy of the Void, you mine out of bases really fast. So for instance, if you were to go, oh, this Terran is on 4 bases. What if I killed that 4th base? Look at the Terran's main base, then look at his natural, then look at his 3rd. If you killed his main right now, his economy would start to suck. The reason why that is because his patches are mining out of the natural. They're already mined out in the main, and they're almost fully depleted. And the 3rd base is looking still pretty decent for a little while. But his economy would go into the fucking shitter if you wiped out his brand new economy that he's about to set up. And you would also know, oh, Terran's on 4 bases, so the fact that I'm on 4 base and he's on 4 base is not the best for me. It means I need to be more conservative. I need to be less sloppy and just super hyper aggro. I need to be a little bit more creative about how I make efficiency out of my units, which goes back into the point of if you scout where he is, and let's say you saw his army was like, if you saw his army was sitting right where it is right now, in front of the natural and in front of the 3rd, watch how long he leaves it here for. Just like look at everyone's vision and look at the minimap of like blue. And look at how long his command center probably stays exposed for at the 4th. It doesn't matter if it's a planetary as well. You could make Banelings just blow that shit up in like 2 seconds. But look how, if you had a changeling sitting there at his army right now, you'd be like, wow. He is so far away from the 4th base. I could literally run at that 4th. And now look at where his army goes.
Now there's another one.
Exactly. If you watched his army with the changeling and you watched him walk this way, you could go, well, how about I just bust the depots at his 3rd? Because now he's over defending the left side. And now he's also moving. Like, here's the thing too. Here's the even crazier thing. What if you teched into something else? Like, let's say, what if you got Burrow Banelings? What if you got Burrow Banelings? What if you got Infestors? What if you got Lurkers? What if you got something super cost efficient? And you went, oh, look at the Terran. He's walking to the left side of the map, and he's going to attack the left side. So what if I control the left ramp? Like, you see where your creep is on the left ramp? What if you put Banelings on top of that? Or what if you had, like, Lurkers in this area? Or what if you had, like, 3 Infestors on the high ground above the cliff where he's about to walk. Like, you're going to take some amazingly juicy trade. So, like, that's the kind of shit you can set up. You can premeditate situations for yourself. Or, what if you saw his army walking this way, and you see, oh, well, he's only got 4 medevacs. This is not enough medevacs to evacuate this entire army. So, he's committed now, and a lot of these units will die. What if you left half of your army on the high ground, where the creep is, and what if the other half of your army was sitting near the bushes on the edge of your creep below that, like south of the ramp? And you let him commit into the hallway that is super tight, and he can't really micro very much in there. And then he, when he's committed into that hallway, you just go, okay, A move. And I just sandwich him in the hallway. Like, there's so many things you could set up here. And what if, here's another one. What if you had a changeling at his third base, and you go, well, there's fucking nothing here. What if I send 6 banelings, or like 8 banelings, to blow up the depots at the third base, and I pair that with only like 10 zerglings? It's not even a big army. It's like 14, or not even, it's like 12 supply for you or something like that. It's super tiny supply investment. But because you see he has nothing here, you could blow up his depots, maybe have 1 or 2 banelings go further even into the mineral line, and then like 10 lings just kill the whole mineral line. Because your lings at this point are, you know, they're like, doesn't matter. You only have 1/1, but it doesn't really matter. You're gonna fucking wreck SCVs with lings. It doesn't even matter, especially if they have like a bane in there or 2 banes. Because if you killed this guy's army, and on top of that you also killed a mineral line, the game's like over. He's super dead, because they'll knock him back down to like 55 SCVs versus 84 drones, and you just killed an army, and he's also mining out of his base. You would have a momentum shift then, where you could actually have a power swing, because you just killed his army as well, where you could now counter shove him and also not only kill his army and one of his mineral lines, but you could also then jump on like one of his planetaries on the outside, and now you knock another base out again before he has a new army to deal with you. So scouting gives you plan of attack, and if you never scout, you're always at the whim of the Terran to just defend on creep. And if that's how you play, you need to definitely make more queens, because your creep is not nearly good enough to do that right now. Like, your creep should be like suffocating his base if that's how you're going to play already. If you're going to skip all aspects of scouting. This Terran player just keeps walking on creep and getting murdered every time. But like, again, this right here, if you scouted, here's another example. If you do defend an attack on creep, which is totally, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually good to defend on creep. But if you had scouted where his bases are, you would have a plan of attack now to go, I know you're on 5 bases. I know you just took a command center in bottom right. I know you have the command center in middle left. I just defended an attack on the left side, so my closest, most advantageous attack I can take advantage of right now would be killing the planetary in middle left, because I could get there really fast. My creep will take me to almost all the way there. You have that one tumor that's kind of spread almost like 1 screen length away from the planetary, and you're already like only like 2 screen lengths away from that planetary with your hydras right now. So you could get there in the next like 10 seconds after you kill this army, which means it's a moment of time where you could capitalize on running him over. And again, if you had changelings in his base, which they last a long time as well. They don't last only like 10 seconds. They last like 3 minutes or like 4 minutes. If you saw where his army was, and if, let's just say you saw him super reinforce that planetary with his new army that he's making, every single time a unit comes, it just walks over there. You could just take a right, like a detour on your creep, and go down the ramp towards his third or his other planetary in bottom right. And you could kill it for free. So like right there, I'm going to back it up just for 1 second. You attacked what you assumed he had, because you have no idea there's a base here. You're attacking that base, but you have no idea. You're just going, you probably have that base. But what if he only had the bottom 4 bases? What if that planetary that's super saturated right there with all the SCVs that you're about to attack, what if that was bottom right instead? Like all those SCVs were down there. And then what if that base was super exposed like it is, and then what if his army was actually defending this planetary? You would throw your advantage away. So you have to be really careful.
Definitely true.
Yeah, you just have to be really careful about shit like that. That's why scouting is so important. but it worked out. You killed it. And on top of that, I think you could have won that fight, but the logic you used there, I totally am on board with it. You killed, you did like a massive like mission to like fuck his economy up. You successfully did that, and then you backed off. You didn't overcommit into a situation where you might lose your army. I loved it. It was good. It was a super, you know, decisive attack. I mean, I didn't like how you didn't scout first, but the fact that it worked out like that and then you just backed off after you killed his economy, that's great. Just more scouting to reveal where he is so you can actually make better plans of attack faster would be better for you. And now, like right now, you see how he's doing this again? This guy keeps walking.
I think I kind of prompted this, but then didn't expect it. So
sure, yeah. Well, you lost a bit of units to kill that planetary, and then he just built up units because you killed the planetary, and you just sacked some units on the planetary. So him attacking you is very normal for sure. But like, just imagine if you watched where he was attacking you, because look at his like once again, like his third mineral line, super exposed. Like if you watch this army go this way, and here's the crazy thing too, if you know he's coming this way, just imagine if you got Burrow and you put like 2 burrowed banelings right where he is right now, because you knew, oh, he's going the right side. His army, let's put some banelings in the center where his blob will probably be. You know how good that would feel if you just fucking blew up 2 banelings right here? And you want to know why pros can actually, like, when you watch somebody who like streams or like a pro gamer who like hits like this fucking juicy baneling bomb, it's not because they're putting banelings literally on every single pixel of the map and they're like, one of these will eventually hit. It's because they scout ahead of where their opponent's positioning is going towards, and they predict, oh, if you're going to go to the right, where is the entrance to the right side of my base? Oh, there it is, right there. Okay, I'm going to put banelings right there. So you can make a plan, like you can predict where his movements will be through seeing where he's, like his angle is going towards from a scout. And I'm not even telling you banelings are like required. It's just the idea and the concept of it, of knowing where he's going to go before he's there, helps a lot. And there's nothing stopping you from doing that because you have overseers that have just never dropped changelings this entire game. It's just basically like an observer that's just giving detection, when it's so much more than that. And like that fight right there, that just lost you the game. And the reason why is because if we back it up, you took a fight that was essentially off creep to a degree. Here, go back to when the fight started. So he sees where you're coming from because he has a tank. And I mean, you know, he's right here. You're trying to save your base. One thing you could have done here, is you could have evacuated your drones to like top left and taken a new base on top left and just let this base die and bought yourself more time to make more army. That's one thing that's wrong with what's happening here. Another thing that's wrong with what's happening here is he's 2-2. He's also, if you look at his upgrades at his engineering base, he's going to be 3-3 in 1 second. It's finishing like right now. It's done. He's now 3-3. You are 1-0 on Hydras and you're 1-2 on your Lings. Which obviously means you have 1 Carapace and 2 melee. You have level 2 Carapace on the way and it's not going to be done for about 100 seconds. So you're in a 1-1 situation with your Ling Bane versus a 2-1 situation with Ling Bane versus a 3-3 situation for Bio, which is super scary. Also, his tanks have an upgrade too, which is, it's just going to make your Hydras die even faster. It still is going to own your Lings and Banes are all going to die just the same, but the Hydras will die a little bit faster now too. The point though is this is about the worst situation you could possibly have for yourself in terms of a fight. So, you know, evacuating would be a better call here, and then allowing yourself to have a bigger army, essentially, like buying more time to make more units with. Also, check this out too. Like if we're talking about your economy again, this is something that I think you might struggle with more often than not. Your third base died, right? In top left, your third base died. You rebuilt it again, but look at your gas. It still has not mined any gas since 6 minutes in this game, when it first died. Look at your fourth base. You never mined any gas from that base the entire time. Look at your fifth base. You've only mined these gases with 1 drone apiece. Like, your gases, everything beyond your main and natural, have been complete garbage for the entire game, which is severely fucking your upgrades over and your tech over. Like, at 14 minutes, you should already have Adrenal Glands, you should already be 3-3, and you should have Ultralisk as well. Like, the ability to make ultras if you want to, or whatever you want to make at Hive Tech. If it's lurkers, it does not matter what it is. Broodlord, lurker, ultra, anything that's badass on Hive Tech, you should have the ability to make that as well. Like 14 minutes is super late to be just starting your hive, really. Like your hive should be started around like 9 minutes.
Gotcha, that makes sense.
And then yeah. This is one of those things where, again, as I was saying before, I feel like the story of this game was you were playing the game in a way where you were hoping the Terran's going to make a mistake repeatedly because you never scouted at all and you never set up any fights at all aggressively. And then all it took was for you to lose one time. You just lose one fight and then suddenly you lose the game. And the reason why is because his economy is always untouched. I mean, I know you did just kill the planetary, so that was the first time you did it, but killing one planetary isn't going to really affect his economy too much at that point because he just immediately attacked you right after. So his economy was still, up to that point, was what it was. It was like, it was still fully pumping, and then now from that point on, he might start having problems. But up until that point, all the units that killed you just now were made from that being a real thing. Like, the planetary gave him this many units and all his other bases. So more awareness of map, more setups of more setting up of attacks and shit like that is definitely the way you want to play it. The best concept to play ZvT, in my opinion, never take a big fight against Terran unless it's on creep. And then if you actually win the fight on creep, push off creep and that's fine because you just took a really good fight. Now, to set up big fights, harass him. Send little squads of Lingbane to go kill things. Do not send your whole army every time to go kill everything. So, for instance, if you guys are both being really timid, and you're like, well, I'm just spreading creep and guarding my creep, and he's not attacking it, I'm going to send over 20 Zerglings and 15 Banelings, and I'm going to run that right into a fucking base on the right side of the map, because I see his army is not there with Changelings, and I'm trying to scout him. And that's it. And then
I want to do that pretty much anytime I can get away with it.
Yes, always. You want to not actually ever attack the Terran unless you just killed his army. Ever. Like the way, like for instance, when you killed his planetary, it made sense to attack that way because you just killed his army. But then when you know, that's not like you can't just say as well. Like this is where I always lose so many people like this. Like there will be people in YouTube videos that are like, well, you just said don't attack, but then you just said attack. I don't understand. Attacking him the way you did at his planetary was correct. However, the last 12 minutes of the game before that were incorrect, which it builds up over time, which made it to where even though you did something that was correct in my opinion, you still died right after because you had you let the Terran get away with way too much before that. Like you let him just have as many bases as you wanted, and he had so much more money than he should have realistically had. If you're gonna play a control-based game, because he had a lot of risky bases. Like his third base so many times was so risky, and every time he moved out to attack you, he had nothing defending his bases at all. It was all super exposed mineral lines. So again, the point I'm trying to make here is yes, move out after an attack happens and you win a fight on creep. That is a great time to go capitalize and kill like an expansion or two and then back off to starve him out. But if no attack is happening and you're maxed or you're like close to max and you're just waiting, force him to attack you by ripping his economy apart, by scouting with Changelings where his army is and going, okay, there he is. Like, even if you don't see where he is, even if you take a terrible fight with like 15 Banes and like 20 Lings, that's not the end of the world. That's super cheap. If you go, oh, my little like 20 supply attack just died. Oh, well. Like, you could remake that in the snap of a finger. It's a remade. You just remake a bunch of Lings and you make existing Lings you have into some Banes again. And you're remaxed in 2 seconds.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of times I'll max out and then just kind of sit around and eventually they just steamroll me all at once. So.
Yeah. And if you do this kind of shit where like you have Lings and Banes go into like a planetary, especially if it's not defended, and you wipe it out, Terran goes like this. Oh, shit. Well, I had 3 active mining bases. Now I only have 2. And one of them is also about to mine out. Okay, I feel the pressure now because now I'm actually having a problem with my economy. And then if he attacks you on creep, and then you kill his army on creep, and then you counter push again, and you kill another one of his bases, he's just straight up dead. So a lot of times what you can do is you can force the Terran to attack you on creep the way you want it to happen by pressuring him into do it with little pokes, not your whole army. Because the last thing you want to do is fight a Terran defensively on creep when he has a lot of, off of creep, when he has a lot of power, especially if he's also like behind a planetary with like 80 fucking supply of bio and like 7 tanks, and you're like trying to break a planetary while you get smashed by all that ranged DPS. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Do you have any questions about anything we just talked about? It really is just scouting for you, honestly. It's a big thing for you.
Be clear about it. It's been really helpful. Thanks.
Last thing I'll say, this is the last thing I'll say, because these are some, we didn't really fully go over the timers on this, but Overlord number 1, as soon as you get to his base, he will make a decision. Really, the big one is, did he expand or not? Number 2, around 4 minutes, scout into his base. So you'll see his base between 4 to 5 minutes, all everywhere in there. It'll tell you what you should see from the Terran, whether it be harass, all in, or macro. Okay? And this is how that goes, okay? If you see more than 3 buildings before a 3rd command center, this is definitely going to be a aggressive Terran player. So if it's 1-1-1, it's not aggressive. It's harass. When I say aggressive, I mean like really fucking aggro, like almost all in. Harass and aggression are like all-in based aggression and harassment are 2 totally different things. Harassment can easily be macroed out of. All-in aggression is like, okay, this dude needs to kill me now or do some serious damage to me to have a chance in the game anymore. So if you see more than 2 barracks or more than 2 factories or more than 2 starports with all of it or whatever, if you just see more than 3 production buildings before he makes it their command center, that dude is going to fucking attack you, and you can still saturate 3 bases, but you're going to need to make a lot of units after that, and you're going to need to like not die around 6 minutes or so, or 7 minutes. So that's what that means. Hopefully I hope that makes sense, but that's like the aggressive form. It's just more than 3 production buildings before at their command center.
That makes sense.
The other one, and you'll see it around between 4 and 5 minutes if he's going to do that. The other one is obviously if it's a 1-1-1, that's just pretty standard, and then he could very clearly go now that you'll see only 1-1-1 if that's what he's going to do between 4 and 5 minutes. If he wants to just straight up do a standard 1-1-1, doing a so there you go, that's it. And then the last one would be if he goes for a really early command center, like a really early 3rd. So he like makes a barracks, a factory, and then like like a 3rd command center after the factory or some shit. Like he's super greedy. You'll see a 3rd command center at that time, and you could be really greedy yourself. So a 4 to 5 minute scout is super important to see how aggressive the Terran's going to be. The last one, the last scout, that's super important that you'll start to realize as you start doing this more often. 6 minute scout. If you don't get Overlord speed, use an Overseer to do this. Scout his base 1 more time at 6 minutes. And the reason why is because this will tell you if the Terran is going bio or mech. Because if some Terrans, they open up straight up with like, I'm going to go bio, and they just go bio all game. This happens a lot in Diamond and Masters and stuff. But as you play higher tier Terrans, Terran, again, like I said before, has the ability to do a lot of shit. Just like rotate their tech. They could very clearly rotate their reactors and factories around, and suddenly now they're going bio, or suddenly now they're going mech. Based out, because like a lot of Terrans open harass based, and then they go into whatever they want. So if you scout them at 6 minutes, they should have extra factories or extra barracks by then if they opened 1-1-1, and now you will know what they're actually going for. For instance, if your opponent's going to go for mech and you're going Lingbane Hydra, I don't think that is necessarily the best army for you to make against mech. Against mech, I would highly recommend you do something more like Swarmhost based than Baneling based. With Hydras are still fine, but you could like maybe go like Hydra Swarmhost, literally, and just be like 20 fucking Swarmhost and like a bunch of Hydras, and you just throw waves of Locust at him over and over if he's going mech, rather than trying to bust into a bunch of tanks with Banelings and Zerglings. And then tanks are just pounding your Hydras. What's up?
Other than just unit composition, what else? How else do I need to play differently if it's bio or mech?
Not much. Like it's the same mostly. It's a lot of scouting, a lot of reacting to like where he is on the map. And if he overexpands with minimal defense at outer bases, you need to pounce on those. Like, this guy had a lot of exposed bases for multiple times this game, and you never even knew about it, so you never even pounced on it. But if you knew about it, and you actually... Because if you actually kill someone's expansion, it is so devastating to their gameplay. Just like it was to yours this game when you killed your third. Like, that fucked you over so bad early on in this game. So if you can kill someone's expansions, you definitely want to do that. And scouting is how you're going to know that. It's not just guesses. So definitely more changelings for you. To just roam around. Like, you should have at all times like 4 or 5 changelings kind of walking around his base. Like, and you don't have to, like, I'm not telling you to be like, okay, count all of his reactors and all of his tech labs and go look at his armories and see if they're spinning, if they're upgrading. Go look at his mule energy. Like, don't have to look at everything. Just once you actually do the changeling aspect of the game, just look at where his army is and look at how many bases he has. Like, where are his expansions? So go to mineral lines that are new, and where is his army located? And if you ever see, oh, he's pretty far away from that base, go kill it. Just go kill it, and then run away.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right, man. Well, I wish you the best of luck. Your build overall, not bad. Just make sure the only weakness I've seen in your build realistically is like the big one is your gas. You definitely got to fix your resources throughout the game, and definitely don't get like bases 4, 5, 6. Don't let them just have like no gas ever. Like, that kind of fucked you, and like the upgrades definitely lost you this game as well. That was huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, good luck. Thank you for doing a lesson, dude. I hope it helps. I'll post this as a VOD, so I know we talked about a lot. But I'll make this a VOD, and I'll link it to you on Discord by tomorrow, so you can always go back and watch it again if you want to re-listen to it again. So there's probably a lot of stuff that goes, like, will be forgotten because it's just like it's like an overload dump of information.
Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. This has been really helpful.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing it, and good luck, man. Go crush Terran. All right, take it easy, dude.
All right, have a good one.
All right, guys. That has been a coaching lesson. That was a lot of like theory, some build stuff, but a lot of theory about how to play ZvT as a whole. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been a diamond level lesson for ZvT. But yeah, if you liked it, guys, go check out more. I have lots of lessons. I have masters, I have gold, plat, whatever, every league. So you could, if you want to learn more, you can easily go check out some more. But I will see you guys in the next one. So until then, have yourselves a great day, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Bye, guys.